2024 marks 150 years since the birth of one of Tulalip's matriarchs, Sarah Sheldon. She was born Sarah Charlie in 1874 to Pilchuck Charlie and Pilchuck Jenny of Snohomish. With her first husband, John Williams, Sarah raised 3 children, Angela, Sub, and Martin. After John's passing, Sarah met and married William Robert Sheldon, and their union brought 7 children: Louise, Buster, Taft, Bernice, Katie, Red, and Nettie. Sarah's life would be one of steadfast hard work, always dedicated to providing for her family and friends, gathering, gardening, cooking, canning, and finding ways to earn money. During the 150-year anniversary of Sarah's birth, granddaughters share memories of their grandma ranch, with loving conversation and reflections, as Lita Sheldon, also one of Sarah's granddaughters, led the interview, with guests Carol Williams Hunter, Jeannie McKay McCoy, and Karen Sheldon.
Did everybody remember calling her Grandma Ranch?
The ranch?
Grandma Ranch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was always called the ranch.
That was all I've ever known her was Grandma Ranch.
Yeah. Everybody I know calls her Grandma Ranch.
Yeah. I always did.
Yeah.
What's your earliest memory of Sarah?
I think I was about 6 years old, and we lived at the very end of the Quill. That's where the road, or 27th Avenue is called, and they also named it George S. Williams Senior Road or Drive, and we lived there where the old, or not the old, but the Quilceda, thank you, building is on the corner. And back then it was nothing but a gravel road. So Grandma would always have these lambs in the spring, and she wanted to know if I would help her feed the lambs. And I told her, yeah, but we had to be there early in the morning, and then we had to be there like 4 times during the day, to feed these lambs. So I'd get up and I would walk down to Grandma's. It was only maybe a couple blocks away, and help her feed the lambs and get the milk ready. And she had these big wine bottles, and she'd cut off a nipple off, or a finger off a rubber glove, thick rubber glove, and she poke holes at the end and then fit it over the milk, the wine bottle. And that was how we fed the baby lambs. She's quite the lady.
What's your earliest memory?
One of the things that we all sat down at the table in the kitchen, and every dinner, we all sat down there. And we had fruit every night. It could be a jar of blackberries, a jar of peaches, applesauce, any of these things that she had made, canned during the year. Every night we would end the dinner with that. And she would pray before and after in Indian. Sometimes Hipper would say, "You better leave the table." Well, she had enough little English words in her language, in her talk, that I'd kind of get the gist of what she was saying, and I wanted to know listen to her stories. And Hipper said, "You better leave." "I don't want to leave." "You better leave." Pretty soon the prayer started, and it got longer and longer and longer, and then I was moved to the front room, and a chair was set down, and the bells came out, and the candle was lit. I had rheumatic fever that year, and so I missed half a year of school. But pretty soon Grandma is praying over me. And I never learned. John Hipper would say, "You better leave the table." "I don't want to leave the table." "You better leave the table." And then afterwards he said, "I told you."
Karen, what's your earliest memory, or an early memory?
Oh, I just remembered I got to go there on Sundays and Wednesdays. And on Wednesdays I had to wait for Dad to get off work. But on Sundays, when I'd wake up, I'd start waking him up. Of course, you know, he went dancing with Mom, and he wanted to sleep in. And sooner or later, we were gone, because he had things he had to do. And I just remember, I want to go. And the road was a dirt road. That's what I remember. So, and it was just so exciting going out to the res.
Well, could you describe her ranch? She had the 2-story house. Can you talk about where she lived?
I have a picture, an old picture, of the house being there and a field all around. Must have been before Sub and Elder's house was built.
No, isn't
Because
that something?
the field was so big around that part of that. But
And then she had a barn.
yeah, she had the barn. It was kind of like a carport or something. You come into the driveway and there was
The big shop, the big open shop.
Yeah, a big
Yeah.
open shop over here. And you go around, you pull up and you pull in front of the like the porch door, and on the other side was a big woodshed
Yeah.
and a big cherry tree.
I remember the woodshed.
Oh.
It had to be far enough from the kitchen so the bugs wouldn't come in, because I thought, that's a long ways to walk. So Dad was telling me you wanted to keep them far away so the bugs would stay outside.
I don't quite remember the woodshed as being anything fun. If we got in trouble, we'd get sent to the woodshed. Then she'd find a little kindling wood. Whack, whack.
Oh dear.
It only happened once.
I seen it happen to Dad. She got a new house, and we were in the kitchen, and he came in, and she said something in Indian, so he said something in English, and she took a piece of kindling and got him right here in the shin. And he said, "Mom, I don't remember." And so she kept talking, then he'd talk a little bit, but yeah, he was on the way home. He's like, "If you don't use it, you lose it," you know,
Yeah.
because it came way down here.
It's
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, that gargle or gurgle.
Tia young fella, tia ha sladai, cha sladai. All right.
Speaking of that, I don't really remember her speaking anything other than Indian, but when she spoke to you guys, did she speak Indian or English?
She,
Half and half.
yeah, half and half. And she, enough of the half that
That he
what-
could understand.
yeah, and what was happening around us, we could figure out what she was saying.
And she had a barn. Didn't she have a root cellar?
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Tell me about that.
Oh, it was a 2-story. You go down into the wood, the root cellar, and there were shelves on the sides, and in the center, towards the wall, there was some hay. And I think the potatoes were in there. I don't know what else was in there.
Carrots.
Carrots.
There was carrots in there, potatoes,
But
and onions, I think.
yeah.
How about canned jars?
Oh, God.
Yeah, the jars were on the sides, and she had lots and lots. Sometimes she had she had like a quart and a half or something. It was bigger than our quart
Regular
jar.
quart, yeah.
Maybe it was a 2 quart. I don't know how big that jar was.
It's pretty
But
big.
there were always lots of fruit jars there.
Well, she had a big family, so she had to feed, plus all the grandkids when we showed up or whatever. But yeah, they had to have a lot of food canned, and back in the day, because there wasn't, the only freezer we had was a freezer in Marysville, or
Yeah.
we'd buy those big blocks and bring them back to the what they call a cooler. They'd put the big block of ice in the cooler, and that's what kept our food and eggs and milk cold back in the day. And that was where we would bring our meat and stuff to get frozen.
Well, before we get into her house, what do you remember about the barn?
Oh.
That it's still standing?
Getting in trouble.
Playing in the hay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
playing in the hay.
We weren't supposed to be playing in the hay. She'd say, "Stay out of the hay."
Oh, what a
But-
wonderful idea.
But she had these bales upstairs, and we would move them around and make tunnels,
Yes.
you know. And plus, she had this one ladder that went clean up, and you could, and the hay would be loose in one big pile, and we'd jump off from that ladder down into the hay. Remember that,
Yeah.
girls? Yeah, that was a lot of fun. But she'd catch us, and she'd get a broom, and she'd be chasing us out of the barn, talking Indian. oh, we ran away.
So, in her 2-story house, the first house, could you describe that? I remember she had that kitchen nook with all the windows, which I thought was really nice. So could you describe her house to me?
When you pulled into the driveway, there was a screened-in porch.
Right.
And so you go into the screened-in porch and then into the kitchen where the wood stove was on the right. And that's how the water got heated, is she would start the fire and the pipe would go through the wood stove somehow, and that's when you got hot water. And on the left was this neat little cabinet. I think it had a kind of a rounded drawer, and the flour went in there.
And it shifted. There was a
Yes.
shifter. I
Yeah, it
remember
came
that.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was cool.
So that was on the other side. And then the end of the sink, the doorway into the living room, and then the sink was over on the far wall, and the long table. For me, it was a long table
Me too.
that we sat and had our dinners there. And then you go into the living room, and there was a fireplace as you entered the door. Not a fire stove, wood
Yeah.
stove
What's
Wood stove.
there, and there was a Davenport along the wall. And I think there was a Davenport towards the window over there.
A bay window?
Yeah.
That corner with all the the bay window.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. The house was built in sections
Yeah.
because when you went from the kitchen, you had to step down.
Yeah. Oh.
And yeah, when you went to other rooms.
And then there was a door that enclosed the stairwell. And you go past that door, and there was another room that a big room that Hipper slept in, and his pool table, not a pool table, ping pong table was in there. And then you go around the corner, and there was Sarah's room, and that was
A long room.
Under the stairs.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it was she had a window through that went into the screen porch, and she could see the woodshed and who was coming and going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that. Like Katie tried to sneak in late, but Sarah would know when she came in.
Because the stairs were right above her bed. Yeah. Well, close to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say it's right above it.
Yeah. Because Mom talked about the folks coming in dancing and stuff.
Well, that room,
Yeah.
that big room before you went into her bedroom under the stairs was used for shaker meetings, too.
Now, what can you tell me about that?
Well, yeah, Grandma Ranch was a shaker, and she was known for her healing. You know, sometimes the healing spirit comes down through whoever's, you know, whoever God chooses. But she was a good shaker. I remember the bells and like Jeannie was talking about, and the stomping on the floors, and
Yeah, the bells.
and have the spirit come and move you, and it would bring you to whoever you were to pray over. And they used to always pull the shades down, and we're kids running around outside, and we wanted to see what was in there. We couldn't figure out why the bells, you know, and the candles, and we try to look through the
And the spinning.
through the shade.
Spinning. They would move and they would spin and sing.
Yeah.
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 Well, at the gym, they have a shaker altar,
Right.
and that was like her altar.
Yeah.
There was the cross up on, I don't know if it was on the wall or up on the table, end of the table, and the bells and the candles were right there.
And always face east. You always put your altar east. Being a shaker was very, I don't know, very strict. And there was a place for everything. There was a reason for doing everything. And I remember they used to put their plates out, and their plates would be upside down, and the silverware, there'd be a cross made with the spoon and the knife, and the fork was on the plate, I believe. It was, and then of course the water glass, but there was always a place for everything. I remember that. And the men on one side, and the women were on the right side,
Jewish.
facing the altar. And they had to wear white. You wore white on Sunday.
Speaking of her house, didn't they used to hold funerals there?
Hold what?
Funerals?
Yes.
Did you guys attend any of the funerals?
Taft. I remember when he passed away.
Now, Dad had a story about Tap.
Did he?
I had him in the morning, I'd take him to the seniors for breakfast and drop him off and go to work. So we're going down the hill, and he says, oh, I remember my brother putting in this hill. He had a team, I don't know if it was mules or horses, but he talked about Tap putting in that road. I never heard that before, so I was like, that's so exciting because that hill is steep, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I get Dad to the seniors. I go, hey, Dad, tell him about the hill. And he's like, what hill? So I had him for an instant, and he just remembered everything.
Oh,
By the time we got to the
wow.
seniors, it was gone.
Wow.
But he was so proud of Tap. I always held on to that because I thought that was just fascinating.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Tell me about Hipper. You've mentioned Hipper.
He's William Sheldon. Bill was second child for Taft and Nora. And I only have pictures of Nora when she was ill. One time there's one picture of Nora she's on a bed in the back of a pickup, and they must be taking her to
Cushman Hospital in Tacoma.
but she seemed to have died when they were pretty young. He was pretty young when his legs
Polio.
were frozen, you know, so they were stiff.
Yeah.
And so when he walks, it's
Hipper.
his hip.
It's his hips.
So, yeah. And so I think that's where he got the name Hipper.
And I was told he had juvenile arthritis.
Probably.
He had polio.
He had polio.
But he
It
was
was
he was
polio.
pretty young when that happened, and he lived most of his life with Sarah.
With Grandma.
I think when Sarah was getting older, they were trying to, I don't know if it was after she died or before she died, that they tried to move him to some other places,
Oh, he wouldn't leave Grandma.
and
Yeah.
those never lasted very long. He stayed with Grandma as long as she was alive.
Yeah.
So, Carol, tell me about your dad and his relationship with Sarah.
Yeah, Daddy's relationship with Grandma was one of being as much help as he possibly could. He had a horse named Peanut, and he'd go horseback riding, and sometimes he'd have to pull some trees out of the woods using Peanut. You know, Grandma would want something built or what have you. I do remember Grandma having that double-seater, the outhouse.
Oh, yeah.
She had that double-seater outhouse, and I think she had the only one out in Tulalip. But there's an old story that goes with those outhouses, too. And our outhouses out here at the time were ordered by President Roosevelt. He declared that all Indians should have sanitary bathrooms. So that's when they built all the outhouses for us poor Indians. So we wouldn't have to go around a tree.
Jeannie, tell me about your mom.
My mom
And her relationship with Sarah.
Mom was the youngest, and Red was,
Second to the youngest.
yeah.
Yeah.
So by the time Mom was born, Angela, who was the firstborn, she had Connie or Effie and Sherman, and then Seb and Elner had George. And so Mother grew up with her cousins, not her brothers and sisters, because they were all older than she was.
Yeah.
Karen, tell me about your dad and his
Dad.
relationship with Sarah.
He loved his mom. He really did. He would get up, and if she called, he would be there. And he'd be sure to be there on Sundays and Wednesdays. And those were the days I remember him being there because I got to go. But I think he was there more than that. He was always checking in with her, see what she needed. He just had a devotion, like George.
Yeah.
Like George. They were devoted to her.
I think your dad smoked fish up there. There was a little building where you smoked fish.
Right.
And I think that was one of the things that your dad did, was he smoked all of this fish. And
what I remember is when they would shear the sheep.
oh,
Tell me about that.
They would dig these great big holes, and they had the wringer washers, and they had that big black kettle they'd fill up with water, and they would soak these fleeces that really needed soaking. Yeah, they just sheared them. There'd be the fleece, and they'd stick it in really hot soapy water and transfer it a couple times before they wrung it out. And I would run through there, and I remember one time she grabbed me and she said, "No more, you can't come here because of the holes." And sometimes I could understand her perfectly, but other times I had to you know. I was just a kid. I just wanted to run. I'd see what they were doing, but it was really dangerous because these holes were so deep and filled with boiling water. So I just thought it was an amazing time.
So what do you remember about sheep shearing?
Oh, before the sheep got sheared, she would go get them and kind of corral them near the barn.
Mm-hmm.
I think the sons would create this corral, but you walk through the where the fruit trees were, up to the gate to get into the field where the sheep were, and the sheep would see her, and by the time she got to the gate, they're all gathered around her.
Waiting for her.
And she's walking to the barn, and all these sheep are just trying to get around, get as close to her as possible.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
And then she'd go into the barn, and everybody would go around to their entrance to the other side, and she would get whatever they were, how she was feeding them. I don't know if it was just hay or some
Grain.
She gave me green,
Yeah.
too.
Grain. But
Because I remember going in the barn and Dad getting a scooper and the grain thing. But
Yeah.
and I was always in the way, so.
but she would have them all corralled, and then sons and my dad and son-in-laws would be there, and older grandkids, grandsons would be there, and they would be inside there shearing, and Grandma would be checking on them. And then when the wool got moved over to where she was washing, well, when I remember, she had 3 wringer washing machines, and then the wringer washing machine had two rinse bucket pans, big metal things, and so she'd put it in the wringer washing machine and wash it, and she'd go through the wringer into the rinse and rinse that and move the wringer over and go there, and then you just kept moving down
Down the line.
the line.
Down the line.
And then there was these long wires where she hung them.
Yep. I got a picture of that.
Yeah.
And also the big cold iron kettles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. But yeah, that was the coolest thing.
I remember the guys would get tired, holding down the sheep and shearing. And Mom got in there. And I remember seeing Mom, and she'd get into where they couldn't because she was so little, and they were. I was just like, are you crazy? But it looked like it was fun.
But then the women, the daughters and daughter-in-laws, they must have brought food, but there was the cooking going on in the wood stove, and then there were these long tables set up. I don't know where the tables were hiding before,
Right.
but that was all in the driveway. All these
Oh,
long
yeah.
tables.
Yeah.
And the guys would all come in from the barn, and they would get to sit down and eat. And I think we ate later.
Later. Yeah.
But yeah, you sat down and ate.
Carol, what do you remember about sheep shearing?
Oh gosh. Well, I know when they would have the whole family there for the sheep shearing, somebody would go out and get a deer, or somebody would donate a pig, and they would have a big old
Barbecue
roast
thing.
barbecue, and everybody would bring salads and fruit and all that. We ate good, but yeah, I remember the sheep shearing. It was sometimes you get stuck having to cut the poop off the wool. That was not a fun job. And I did not like that. But you had to do what you had to do, you know. So she would shear those sheep, and then I didn't remember the washing machines coming in until later. But she, before she got the washing machines, she had them big cold iron kettles, and had the tripod and would hook it up over the fire, the open fire, and then get hot, and then she would put her wool in there after it got trimmed up and everything, and use one for washing and the other one for rinsing. And then I got a picture of her clothesline where she hanged up the wool, and then in the background is those cold iron kettles. And it was a long, tedious, it usually take a couple, maybe 3 days, depending how much sheep she had. She'd have anywhere from, 50 to 100 sheep, and when she got older, it dropped down to about 30 to 50, you know. But she was our first woman entrepreneur for our tribe. And that didn't come to me until I started thinking about her sock business. Our people, our ladies, it was tough back then. Money was not there. You know, people, sometimes we were still pumping water inside the house. You know, not everybody had phones and cars.
Or plumbing.
It was just, it was just a real poor time. So Grandma and Mariah Moses and Johanna and Grandma's sister and Grandma Eleanor, and might have been, I think, one more, got together and decided Grandpa Sub knew Eddie Bauer, was personal friends with Eddie Bauer, and found out that Eddie Bauer had mills. So what Grandma did was they got all the women in the community that could knit socks or hats or sweaters or whatever their talent was. And that's how the Tulalip women got known for their knitting. Eddie Bauer loved their knitting. He couldn't keep up with the demand. He'd bring the knitting up to his stores in Alaska and sell out up there, and he was trying to get more Tulalip ladies, you know, to ask Grandma if she could get more ladies to knit. And consequently, they had everybody knitting they could find. And so the whole process of the sheep shearing started from where they would clean it, send the cleaned wool to Eddie Bauer's mills. He would then turn them into these big
rolls of carded
8 by 6 rolls, and they would roll it up in the paper, and it would be like this big, and bring them back, and then Grandma would spin them.
Well, you got to
you gotta go like that.
Yeah, about 4 inches, wasn't it?
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
Before you put it in the spinner.
Yeah.
And that's when the ping pong net came off, and that table, that was where it laid out, and she would go up and down,
up and down.
I remember Mom doing that at our house.
Yes.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, did you guys ever go, what did Sarah have you do? Did she have you go berry picking with her?
I got to do that.
Didn't she ask George to take her far away, and he'd have to get up before dark to get there?
Yeah.
Yeah. He goes, well, she'll want to go berry picking. But he would always drop everything he was doing to do whatever she wanted.
Yeah.
They all did that to her. They were devoted to her.
Well, John's favorite story was that when he was graduated from high school and he came up, he ended up staying with Martin, slept in Martin's garage, and his job, his pay to do this, besides the fish, was to take Marge, drive Marge anywhere she wanted to go.
Martin's wife.
So
Martin's wife.
So Sarah would come down and talk to Marge, and they would decide that they were going berry picking, and they were going to go to the mountains. And so they had, he had asked, do you want me to do anything that day? He's 17, and they said no, and so he's down there where the taverns are in Marysville. And pretty soon, Pauline comes into the tavern looking for him. Pauline Williams.
Explain how she's related to Martin.
She was Martin and Marge's granddaughter. Gladys was their mom. And she came in and got John and said, we're going berry picking. So they were Grandma Ranch, Marge, Gladys, Pauline, Joe, and Steve. I don't know if Kathy was still alive then.
I don't think so. She died when she was 11.
Yeah.
Oh.
But
What about Josie?
Oh, probably Josie.
Yeah.
Went
These are all Martin's children?
Martin's daughter, yeah.
The youngest.
They went,
Grandchildren.
he drove them. No, Josie wasn't there. She must have gone to Germany.
Okay. Oh, yeah, okay.
Uh-huh.
So he had to drive them up to the mountains. And so it's early, crack of dawn. And Sarah's got all of these baskets. And she's handing out baskets. And your job is to fill the basket that she gives you, to fill it up. And then she would take those baskets, and she have a big basket, and she put all of the berries into the big basket.
Yeah.
And John thought that he was going to be able to go to sleep. Graham hands him a basket. And fill it up. And that was what, she decided that the berries were ripe in the mountains. It must have been later than the berries down here.
Probably huckleberries.
And they went up. They were up there in the mountains picking berries, and that was his weekend off.
I still have Dad's basket, his berry basket. When we'd go pick berries, yeah.
Oh, I wish I had mine.
Oh.
Mine was tiny, too.
Oh, I got a quick question. So did Sarah, do you know if she made baskets?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was.
She made the root baskets.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
root baskets.
They're hard. It's hard to find anybody could do that now.
Clam baskets, too. She used to make clam
John
baskets.
LaPlante, the police officer out here, he goes, "Oh, I was so jealous when Martin and everybody would have those clam baskets."
Yeah.
Yeah.
She would make their clam
So,
baskets.
yeah.
Any other favorite memory that you have of her?
Listening to her talk. Yeah. Even after we moved down the road to that little White House, every once she would come down sometimes and eat with us, and she and Mom would talk. Sarah would talk in Indian, Mom would talk in English, and we would just listen.
But she was really strong about learning English.
Yeah.
The kids had to, go
Yeah.
to school and learn English. And that worked because they were on the board.
Yeah.
We had a...
I have to say, walking down and preparing the bottles for the lambs and feeding the lambs with her, because we not only fed the lambs, but she would always make a little breakfast for us afterwards, and she'd always be talking Indian, but she'd throw in English, But she had this little trick too. She seemed like when her kids would come around, she'd have a hard time hearing them and stuff. And then I noticed, but when they left, she could hear just fine. So wow. I think it was called selective hearing even back then. But yeah, going out and getting the sheep with her, or feeding the lambs in that screened off little room, and watching them be born, and getting, just trying to be helpful, getting the water and the rags that were needed, and just such a good time. And then berry picking with her. You could hear all these Indian women, and there was always a real specific way they dress, and it was their hair would be wrapped in a scarf to keep from getting it snagged onto sticker bushes and trees and limbs and stuff like that. And then they would have these long johns that they would wear underneath their dresses, and they had these kind of old lace army boots, kind of, they were feminine. They would lace up, and the undergarments would be inside the boot, and the sock would be up over the undergarment to keep from bugs. And there was always a reason for things. And and then they had their dress and their apron, and then they usually had their berry basket, go over their head and then tie it in the back, and then they leaves their hands free to pick the berries. And you put ferns on the bottom of the basket to help keep the berries firm, and then cover them up with ferns to keep stuff out of there.
And Sarah always wore dresses.
Yeah.
Apron. She always had an apron.
A dress and an apron.
And a band over their head.
Yeah.
Wait, I have a story.
Yes.
Okay.
We want to talk about TV and wrestling.
Tell that story.
That's a good one.
That when we moved up there, she didn't have a TV, but our TV came. And so Arnie liked watching, that was my brother, he liked to watch this wrestling. So she liked to watch the wrestling on TV. And the more exciting the thing got, the faster the niddle needles would go. Click, 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 click. And then he took her to Everett, where they had live wrestling matches.
Oh my God.
And she would stand up and she would be yelling at them in Indian, shaking her head at them. And Arnie would he would have so much fun just watching her. That's why he took her there, is not because he wanted to see the wrestling, he wanted to see Grandma react.
Amen.
And that was, and then we moved down to the White House, and so she went to Cars, and wrestling was going to be on that night, and so she went in there, and she says, I want that TV, and I want it tonight. And so they managed to get it up, get the antenna up, and had the TV ready for her so she could watch wrestling that night.
Bless her heart.
And I guess that's my favorite story of her.
That is a cool story, because, she's this little traditional Indian woman. I just can't see her out there yelling for her favorite wrestler.
We took her one time. I got to go. Grandma and Grandpa took Grandma to wrestling in Everett, and it was more fun watching her because I'm not very old myself. But when I'd see her stand up, and do a talking Indian and just screaming, it was just so much fun, you know. I wish we could have got a video.
Wouldn't that have been fun?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, so encourage our young people to not only finish your education, but to strive to find out who you are, where you come from, who your people are. Strive to do the best you can at all times. Try to see the beauty in all things. There's beauty in everything. And continue to thrive to find out more about your heritage and your traditions and your family tree. You'd be surprised how related we really are. And it's so important for you young people to grasp a hold of what our Constitution and bylaws really mean to us and how to fight for what is ours. Don't allow anybody to tell you that you can't do anything, because you can do anything you set your heart to. And I pray that you will all be safe and that you will come to learn and love your people and your reservation and who you are as an individual. And it's been my pleasure to speak and be with my relatives. And thank you, Coco. I really appreciate it. And love to all. Aho Matakiasi.
Thank you. Jeannie, you got some quick advice for...
Amen to what Carol said. Yeah. One of the things that I was thinking about is when people say, respect your elders, you respect your elders because when you were little, they were there for you. If you, as young adults, you have to be there for your kids at the most simplest times. Like the great-grandboys they come over and take a bath at my house. And it's because I'm there for the kids. And I think that's where the respect comes from. If you ignore them all the time they're growing up, they don't see any reason to respect you.
Mm.
It's when you take care of them when they are small.
Make sure they're loved and fed and clean.
Yeah.
That's all they really want, you know.
Karen, you got some advice for young people?
Well, right now, the technology is taking over everything, and they seem to be forgetting everything that Carol and Jeannie said, so I go along with Carol.
After a full life of 94 years, Sarah Sheldon passed in 1969 and was buried at Tulalip's Mission Beach Cemetery. Sarah's legacy of dedication to her family and tribe carries on through revered memories. The Tulalip History Project proudly remembers Tulalip member Sarah Sheldon on the 150-year anniversary of her birth.